Okay, we are live.
Yay.
Yay.
And recording.
Hello. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you're at joining us from the world today. So this is my Tell Your Story speaker series, and I'm so excited to be introducing you all to Jennifer MacNiven. She is an international branding photographer and newly self-published author of the book Mind, Body, Soulmate. Did I get that right? Mind, yep, Mind, Body, Soulmate, Successful, Single, and Still Looking. She's also a personal client of mine as well. We've been working together for a while. She also photographed my last retreat. And Jennifer just holds a special place inside my heart. And she is so ready and so excited today to share her unique story with you all today. And just to let you all know too, Jennifer is the one who's like introduced me to so many new like alternative ways of living and concepts, and like she's the first one who told me all about ayahuasca. And so it just goes to show you like Jennifer's like done it all and been through it all, and she's an open book, which is so cool. So Jen, that was a really long introduction, so I'd love for you to hear, how do you want to introduce yourself and set yourself up for sharing your unique story today?
Oh, well, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, everything you said is very much true. I am an international branding photographer. That is not how I started in my career. I started as, I got my master's in physical therapy, and I worked for biomedical device companies in the neurological rehab industry for like 13 years. And I had always had a photography business on the side. And when I started my journey, which is a lot of what my book's about that we'll be sharing, my camera was my, trusty sidekick and went everywhere with me, and just kind of developed into that passion turned business. And it's still a passion. That's the one thing I love about it. It's still a passion. So so I've done that. And then I'm also a certified yoga instructor. And so I think the world has just opened me up to being so many things that, it's like you're writing the book, Beyond the Picket Fence. I'm the book of Beyond the White Box, basically. So it's like, you can't fit me in a little box. There's too many parts of me.
And it makes sense why our souls were attracted to each other, because, I'm writing my book as well right now. That's Beyond the White Picket Fence. And there's a lot of similar themes and stories woven into our books about living life on your own terms, and that your life doesn't have to look the way that people tell you to live. And so I'm curious. I mean, it pretty much your whole life has been leading to this moment and in putting your story on these pages. But like, how did you decide to, let me backtrack a little bit. A lot of people say they want to write a book about their life story, right? I hear that all the time in the coaching world, but like very few people actually follow through with it. So what actually got you to getting this done?
I was one of those people that just, my entire journey was something so magical, transformational, kicked my ass hardcore. So there was nothing that was just like pure bliss about it. It was actually really challenging. But it was something that I had never heard of. Now, granted, I'm in the transformational community now, so I hear about it all the time. But people who knew me before I was in this, new community, I just seek new and like-minded people now. And so I guess you could kind of call it my old life. I just felt that everything that I did was so radical in its own way that I wanted to just share it and be like, look, people, there's so much more out there in this world. There's so much more going on. We don't have our shit all figured out here in the States or in the Western world, Western mindset. And I learned so much from other cultures and travel and just the experiences that I really wanted to share it. And, even though my book is called Mind, Body, Soulmate, the chapter, like I think 11 is the soulmate part. The rest of it is the journey to preparing yourself, which means you have to let go of all the shit before that we have preconditioned ourselves with, either by family, with society, with our friends, our own selves. We get trapped in our own belief system. And so it was just something that I'm like, I need to get this done. But ultimately, I did meet somebody. And I think in that meeting somebody, it gave me it gave me that confidence to say, wow, everything that I went through did meet up to my expectations of what I was setting myself up for. All the transformational work that I did was viewed, it was seen, it was appreciated, and I was attracting somebody who I really wanted to attract, that was like-minded. And so I just felt in that instant almost like this piece of like, you've arrived, now you may write your story. But that's only my arrival to that point. There's a whole nother book out there, because I just felt held in a space of like, yeah, what you did really did make a difference. And so now it's time to really share what that difference was.
Wow, that takes so much courage and strength to do what you did and to put it all out there. And it's a very vulnerable story. Oh, hold on, let me turn.
I know, I got the same thing.
There's my business partner. Hi, Monica. Okay. And so what was the hardest part when you were writing this book? Like, what was the hardest part to write about?
Chapter 4. And honestly, I don't even know what chapter 4 was, but I think it's funny because you think that a book, I actually didn't have a journal. I didn't have notes. I didn't have all the things that you think you're supposed to have written down ahead of time. And so I actually ended up going through a program called the Authors Incubator. And it was, a pricey program. But it was so because they got it done in 9 weeks. And I actually started a week late. So I wrote my book in 8 weeks. And the process that they take you through was step by step to how to share your story. Who are your ideal readers? What are the valuable pieces? How to bring it back to your reader? The important things to talk about without it being a novel, without it, being too wordy, but at the same time, just being like, here's this point, capture the interest, have some introspective for yourself, or introspection for yourself, so that ultimately the book isn't about me. The book is about how can you see yourself in my story. And so that's what's been so beautiful about it, is everybody who has read it and has written a review has, told me how valuable it was for them to see themselves in the story, to see their own issues that have arisen in their life, the traumas that they've been keeping secret or, have troubled them. And so again, it wasn't, I think the hardest part in general was not trying to just make it about me, because that's ultimately not what it's about. It's to help other people. So taking your story and twisting it in a way to bring in the reader, I think was ultimately the goal, but it was also a challenge because you come with your story, but how do you bring that back so that other people are like, oh, that's my story too. It's different, but it's similar, and I can relate.
And you did a great job at that, because I felt that when I was reading the book, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can relate to this, and I see myself, in her, in this situation. So did a great job with that. And that is something also we teach in our public speaking academy, is it's not just about going out to the world and blabbing your story and airing your dirty laundry, but it's really about keeping your reader in mind, your audience in mind, and yeah, thinking about how can they be the hero or heroine in their story, and you show up, your story is like a guide to getting them to where you want them to take action or where you want them to be. So you did an absolutely beautiful job with that in this book. Yeah. And yeah, just for everyone too who's thinking about writing a book, it's definitely an investment. Like I've been almost on a 2-year journey with writing my book with my editor and ghostwriter, and I spent about $19,000, and which, believe me, was a very scary investment. But at the same time, when I was interviewing different editors, what Nikki said to me is like, would you be okay with leaving this earth and not having your story being told? Yeah. And when she said that, like, I knew in my heart, I will do anything I can to find the money and make this happen. Because first of all, this book isn't going to happen if I just decide. I'm not going to sit down and write a book. Let's be honest. That's not my personality. And I was just like, I can't do that. I didn't go through all this shit and all these ups and downs to not have it be told and to help other people. Right. And so I'm sure you kind of felt the same way, Jen, and you made it happen. And yeah.
And I felt that way from year one of when I say my journey started, because it was so drastic. For me, at least, in the changes, the experiences, the things that I learned, the person that I was, and I'm like, I've got to share this. But it took me 5 years, but rightfully so, because there was still more development. There was still more to be had. There were still more experiences that ultimately, put me in a situation that I met an amazing man, which kind of was the cherry on the top. That was an underlying theme throughout the whole book, was like wanting to meet somebody. But the reality is I wasn't okay. I wasn't okay with myself. I wasn't okay the way that I was showing up. I was showing up, on the outside as this single, successful, got my shit together. But I'm like, my friend and I jokingly called it the common denominators club. Like, I'm the common denominator in all of my relationships. Why are they failing? Why are they not working? And so then I just had to take that deep, dark look at myself and be like, oh yeah, I'm a part of that. And I'm an anxious mess with post-traumatic stress and depression, and I'm trying to hide it. But those are the underlying things that I had to work on to bring myself out of, the hamster wheel of life that I was on. And so I jokingly say that somebody literally like just put a stick in my hamster wheel and I flung off, and that's when my journey started. And I want to be that person to just put that stick in other people's hamster wheels and have them fly off and begin their journey. I don't want it to be this like, should I maybe go? It's like, no, go, like, do it. And the coolest thing is that I have done that for a few people already, where they've been in really gnarly, narcissistic marriages, and for 10 years they wanted to get a divorce. And in the 1 month after they read my book, that it was like, one girl said, I've read all the Brene Browns and the Marie Forleos and all of the other, like the people who give you all the soul searching. And she's like, but it was your book that resonated. Mm-hmm. And in that, she filed for divorce within 1 month. And so it was just like one of those moments for me that was like, oh, yes, it was so worth it. It was so worth just helping even one person. But there's been more. And so that's super exciting for me. And it's not about me. It's helping others.
Yeah, that's an incredible testimonial. Holy cow. I hope that you tell everyone about that. And second of all, like, to get a compliment like that, Brene Brown is the queen of shame research and vulnerability. And so for someone to, have read her books and Marie Forleo's books, but then when your book was the catalyst to actually getting her to take action, to take control of her life. Like that's, oh my gosh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the one that warms my heart. And I mean, there's several of them, actually. There's multiple people who have replied the same, but this was just that one in particular, that it was like, you saw the results. She read my book 3 times. And, wow. And I'm like, have I even read my book 3 times? The answer is yes, but still, it was like, the fact that she did that and she took it upon herself to do I have questions, like journal prompts at the end of each chapter. And she said she read the book through first time, didn't, do the questions. And then she's like, no, I owe it to myself to actually answer these questions, not just in my head, but to write them down. And so she went through, read it again, and answered all of the questions, which was kind of her catalyst to doing what she knew was already in her heart. I didn't do anything. It was just the realization for herself, which was awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I want to, be that person that helps guide people through that process. It's not an easy process. And a process also means it takes time. Yeah. And it's not something that happens in one day. And, I'm wanting to coach women through this, this journey, because nobody was there to handhold me through mine. Therefore, it took me 5 years. Like, I really want to help people shorten that time frame and have that transformation occur in a much shorter amount of time, so that that they can continue living their highest self versus being, stuck in a pattern that's not serving them.
Yeah.
And it's not to say, and because we're working together, it's like, just because I solved, one problem doesn't mean that there aren't other underlying issues to continue to work on. So that was my realization, is like, I did all this work and I figured everything out for a certain aspect of my life. And then there's more stuff.
That is how it works. So first of all, the studies show that when you work with a coach, you get results so much quicker. And so that is why, people work with me and people work with coaches, and you as well, as they want to grow quicker and they want to accelerate quicker, and they don't want to be stuck forever. Because as we both know, being stuck in your rock bottom, it sucks. It's terrible. And then, absolutely. You're never done. Like, that's what I've learned in personal development, is you're never like, oh, I've got it all figured out. All my issues are worked through. There's nothing else left. It's like, once you work through one thing, then there's another, and it's this peeling back this layer of this onion. And that's okay. And that's beautiful. And I think that it's good to be open and honest about that, about your journey, is to let people know, is like, I've done a lot of work and I've figured a lot of shit out, but there's still things I'm going through. And that's what makes you relatable to your people and your reader, because people don't want to hire coaches that have it all figured out. And they want to hire coaches who say, I get it, I've been there, and let's help you get through this too.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, it also, the coaching in relation to my photography business it's crazy how many women are insecure about stepping in front of a camera. Mm-hmm. And that's, our, again, preconceived notions, family, society, telling what you look like, how you should be. And therefore, like, we are, as coaches, but so many women out there, entrepreneurs, are their brand. Mm-hmm. And it is so hard for them to step in front of the camera. And I would say, 75% of my photo sessions are coaching. It's like, I'm coaching them through the process. I'm coaching them through, feeling good about themselves, appreciating things, seeing the joy, seeing the beauty, recognizing what it is that they have to offer. And so I really do believe that the book, even though it's, it's a different story, there's so much energy about self-love and self-worth. That is, the underlying theme. And it was funny when I was writing my book, the lady who runs the author's incubator, she was just like, every book is a women in transition looking for self-love. Every book, let's just face it. All self-help books are that. But how do you relate to your reader? And there's so many different avenues of relating. And so that's why I think it was so magical that people do relate in the way that they do when they're reading my book, going through, different physical, emotional, psychological traumas in life and how they come out on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love what she said. What was that? Every book is a
women in transition looking for self-love.
Yeah, I was like, wow, you just summed up my book. That's crazy.
Oh, well, that's the thing. It's like everybody in my course is all writing like, it's about self-love. No duh, all of them are. It was like, but it is. I mean, when I say, my book has parentheses around mate, so it's really mind, body, soul, then mate. It's just like, it's all about finding you first. Before you can really ultimately put yourself out there, to meet the right person.
I love
or
that.
persons, I mean, it's like, no one's to say that this one person is here forever and ever, amen, nor is anybody else in our life, but here and now, this is my person.
Exactly. Is there any part of your book that, like, when you're telling people to read it, or like, I'm going to read it, that you're like, oh my gosh, like there's a little party that's like embarrassed or scared when they're knowing that, like, they're going to know that part of your story?
Yeah. Chapter 2 is like just the garbage dump of all of the issues that I went through, all of the stories, the emotional traumas, I mean, I was raped. I've been attacked at a separate time. I was self-mutilating by picking on my skin when I was younger. I had a rumor go around about me when I was in 6th grade, and I was suicidal. I never attempted anything, but it was a daily thought. It's just like your family stuff that comes up that, and I'm not sitting here pointing fingers at anybody, but it is a realization when you go back and you look at, like, how does your family, ultimately are the reason that you are the way that you are. Now, I'm not going to go point fingers, because ultimately my family only knew the best that they knew how to do, at the time, and vice versa, their family before. And so when you go back and you look at, like, the generational healing work that has to be done, a lot of times when you tell a story, people want to say, like, you're blaming somebody, and you're not. I'm not blaming anybody, but I am pointing out the root cause of why I became the way that I became. Now, it's also my choice to undo that, work with it, deal with it, resolve it, and so that's the hard part, is like, I feel that, some of my family hasn't even really read my book because they're scared of what they might hear or see. And so that's fine. I just leave it be, and I'm not going to make, a big deal of it. But I also feel that that's the part that people are like, oh my God, she had that happen to her too. Like, so did I, and so that's where it pulls in your readers. Like, and I even had a man recently read my book, and he's like, yeah, the first, chapter or 2, I thought I was entering some secret sisterhood, and I felt like I was a voyeur in it. And he's like, but then I realized, like, men have their own stuff. He's like, I didn't get to please my dad because he had such high expectations of me with XYZ. So he had his own shit that he full on related to, even though I'm female and mine was different. So it's not, everybody has something, and it is hard to put it out there, but once you do, and you realize, like, oh, she was a closet, like, she was the person that went home and drank wine to numb the fact that she was an empath and couldn't deal with society, and to the world it just looks like you're drinking, but to me it was like, how do I calm my nervous system, because I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious, got all these issues going on. So
well, thank you for sharing that, because I know that's what holds a lot of people back, is being afraid of, what will my family think, or past lovers or friends if you tell stories. And I know that my partner Kyle, even though I don't have any stories about him in there, he's still very nervous to read my book, and I don't know if he will, and that's okay. Like, that's his choice, and just like with your family's choice. But we have to, as Tara Moore says, your mission has to be bigger than your fear. And so, like, you have to be more dedicated to wanting to help people versus being so worried about what other people think, because like you said, they can read it if they want, and then you guys can have a conversation afterwards about it, or they don't have to read it. But at the end of the day, you have to get your story out there, and you have to help the people who are ready to hear this message.
Yeah. And I think, you mentioned at the very beginning that I was the one that introduced you to the concept of ayahuasca. And, I was somebody who had never done drugs, never done psychedelics, like, I was Miss Goody Two Shoes. I drank alcohol, that was about it. And when I realized what the world of plant medicines was all about, and I tried it for the first time, it was mind-blowing, life-altering, and my soul just called me to it. So within the first month of me hearing about it, I ended up doing it. And in doing so, I've ended up doing 14 ceremonies thus far. Some people have done, like one a week, like, to some people it's very common, and some people, they're like, oh my God, I would never touch it with a 10-foot pole. But for me, it was truth. It was like, when I drank the medicine, and I'm surrounded in a very traditional, authentic culture of why this medicine works, how it works, and all of the realizations came up, I was just like, wow, that's what's hiding underneath the surface of our mind, is our subconscious, our cellular being of where we store all of this information and all of this trauma and maybe even past life type of stuff that is stored within you. And in dealing with that, I felt like I was part of this, the secret club. And because it wasn't mainstream, it's much more mainstream now. Just in the 5 years since my first time that I had done it, or 6 years, it seems very mainstream. Like, many people know the word. I had never even heard of it before. But since then, I've done, mushrooms, and everything that I've done, let me just preface this, everything I've done was for healing and done ceremoniously. So I wasn't just willy-nilly having fun with it. But I've done San Pedro, or also known as Wachuma. I've done Bobinsana, Vilca, what is peyote? Wow. So I've done all of these different plant medicines, with the realization that I was peeling back those layers of that onion. And every single time it was new realization of like, oh, there's that to work on now. Or, oh, that's where that came from. Or, oh, I wasn't really aware of all of it. The hard part from that is the integration afterwards, because you come back into mainstream society and you're trying to integrate this knowledge from another source, your inner source, really. And that is hard. That, for me, was a huge, huge challenge in just being in mainstream society again after my journeys, was that I knew so much more now. And which is one of the reasons that these things might be illegal in this country, is because the awareness that people receive would, it totally contradicts our government. It totally contradicts like how we are raised and the food. It's very eye-opening, and our government wouldn't want that culture. So
Yeah.
that, I think, was a really, really hard thing for me, was that it's looked upon as, oh, you did drugs? Like, no, it's not a drug. It's you, in an essence, just being brought forth and doing the work to heal it. So
Yeah.
it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and it's not always fun. That's for sure.
It's drinking your truth serum. And
oh my God,
you inspired me to write a chapter in my book about my most recent mushroom journey. And I've only been on one ceremony, but oh my goodness, that was eye-opening, and I can't wait to do ayahuasca after I'm pregnant. I deliver this baby in May, or done being pregnant. But yes, I love it. I love it. So, okay, so we're about at the end of our interview. So what is it, like, what inspiration or words of wisdom would you like to leave our audience with today, Jen?
I just think that we are so bombarded with everything in our society that, we take so little time to really figure out what it is that we even like. What is our voice? What is it that we believe? And sometimes it takes some stepping away from the noise to figure that out and really see the truth. And of course, with 2020 being all about your vision and just really seeking and seeing the truth in who you are, and really living from that point. And also from a photography aspect, just truly seeing your beauty, like seeing who it is that you are and what you have to offer this world. And so visibility in all aspects, the inner self as well as like your outer self. So
gorgeous.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Your words are so beautiful. Okay, well, thank you so much, Jen, for your time today. And I know Jen's going to be dropping the link for her book. She has it on Amazon. I've already read it. Highly, highly recommend you check it out, especially if you're on this new journey of self-discovery and awakening, and you want an alternative way of living and healing and doing things and a new way to find love. You have to read this book. So Jen, definitely drop your Amazon link in the comment section so that way people can start reading that ASAP. And also for all of you as well, if you need an amazing photographer, and particularly in the form of helping with branding your business or photographing your retreats, I highly recommend Jennifer. It's like I said, she photographed my last retreat in Florida. The pictures are so beautiful and incredible, and it's helped me to almost sell out my next upcoming retreat next month. So there's just so many ways to stay in touch with Jen and use her gifts today. So
well, thank you so much. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year and all the happy holidays too.
Yes, Happy New Year. Bye, everyone.
Bye, thank you.